welcome to another interesting literature in English class. My name is Precious Balogun. Our theme for today is General Introduction to Prose, and our topic is Background and Setting. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to identify and discuss the background of a story, and finally, discuss the setting of a story. When an author writes a story, he takes the following into consideration. He takes the culture, history, beliefs, customs, values, experiences, and so on. All these form the basics on which a story is created or built. The customs, the history, the experiences, all are expressed through the costumes of the characters, through the interactions of the characters, the setting, and so on. Now, let's find out what the background of a story really is. The background of the story is a condition on which the story is built. It is also the event or series of events that lead to a story. Now, the factors that determine the background of a story are the culture, the weather conditions, the status, historical period, geography, time. Also, the plot, character, theme, and style. A foreknowledge of the background of the story helps the readers or audience to understand a story properly. Now, the background of the story includes past events, historical activities, and experiences that lead to the story. Now, let's take a look at an example of a background of a story. The background of the story, Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, is the Biafran War. The story was influenced by the Nigerian Civil War, that is the Biafran War, the war between the Igbos and Nigeria. Chimamanda explored war, violence, famine as a result of all that happened in the Biafran War. Now, let's take a look at what setting is. Setting is the immediate environment, the time, place, and weather condition in which a story takes place. The setting of a story expresses the background and the mood of a story. For example, a background where we have candlelight dinner and petals on the floor, rose petals on the floor, that shows or creates a romantic mood. That is the setting of the story. The setting of the story creates a vivid picture or a mental picture in the minds of the readers or the audience. Now, let's take a look at an example of setting. The hills across the valley of the Ebro were long and wide. On this side, there was no shade and no trees, and the station was between two lines of rails in the sun. Close against the side of the station, there was a warm shadow of the building and a curtain, made of strings of bamboo beads, hung across the open door into the bar, to keep out flies. The American and the girl with him sat at the table in the shade, outside the building. It was very hot, and the express from Barcelona would come in 40 minutes. It stopped at the junction for 2 minutes and went to Madrid. Hills Like White Elephants by Ernest Hemingway. This example shows setting. We can see the place in which the story was set. We also see where their immediate environment, where the American and the girl sat. So many other places show the location too of the story. Now, let's take a look at the types of settings that we have. The types of settings we have are time setting, place setting, social setting, and backdrop setting. Now, let's look at this type of settings one after the other. Time setting is a period in which a story is set. It could be the moment, the month, the year, the season in which a story takes place. The time setting is influenced by the social trends and also what we see. That is the physical setting. Now, let's take a look at an example of a time setting. For example, it was a cool and cozy night. Amaka puts on her afro wig, dancing to Onyeka Onwenu's song, playing softly from the record player at the corner of her room. The time setting here shows the afro wig and the record player. The story was set back in the days, the early 70s and 80s. Now let's go on to the next type of setting, which is place setting. Place setting is a geographical location or immediate environment, which is the physical setting in which a story is set. Now it could be the continent, the country, the building, on the rooftop, on the street. Let's look at an example of a geographical location. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our sin, from ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. Verona here is the geographical location. That is where the story is set. Now, let's take a look at another example. An example of an immediate environment is seen in this excerpt. Oga Theophilus sat in his sitting room that had torn and worn out chairs and a center table that could barely stand on its own. We see the chair and also the table. This is the immediate environment of Oga Theophilus. That is where the story was set. The next type of setting is a social setting. Social setting is a communal or cultural surrounding that influences a story. The social setting captures the social trends, shared beliefs, behaviors, norms, and rules among a group of people or social network at that time. The setting could also be educational, religious, spiritual, moral, legal, economical, emotional, and so on. Let's go on to look at the last setting we have for this lesson, which is backdrop setting. The backdrop setting is the time and geographical location in which a story is set. But this type of setting is embedded in the story. That means it is not clearly stated by the author. This type of setting is usually found in folktales because folktales are mostly character driven. Now let's take a look at an example. Once upon a time, there lived a beautiful princess. In this example, the author generalizes the setting of the story. He does not tell us the exact place where the story took place. This type of setting appeals to our imaginative sense. Having said all this, let's take a quick summary of all we've learned so far. We've learned that the background of a story is the condition on which a story is built. It can also be an event or series of events that lead to a story. We've also learned that setting is the immediate environment, the time or period and weather condition a story is set. Finally, we've learned that the main types of settings are time setting, place setting, social setting, and backdrop setting. Now we're done with our summary. Let's see what we have learned so far with the following questions. Question 1. The conditions on which a story is built is known as A. The setting, B. The background, C. The backdrop. The correct answer is B. The background. Question 2. It was a bright and sunny day as Silva Okoro stepped out of her house. From the excerpt above, which of the following does the author specify as the setting? A. The time of the day. B, the historical period. C, the place of action. The correct answer is A, the time of the day. This is where we draw our curtain for today's lesson. I believe you now know what background and settings are, and you know the types of settings that we have. Until we meet in our next class, see you. Bye.